Welcome to BioTime. In this video, we will be studying the external and internal anatomy of the toad and their functions. First, let's get to know more about toads and how they differ from frogs. Compared to frogs, toads are relatively bigger in size, have shorter hind legs, and have dry and rough skin with warts. Since toads already have bigger mouths, teeth in the upper jaw are absent, which on the other hand are present in frogs. Toads also do not have brow spot, a tiny white spot at the mid-dorsal part of the head between the level of the eyes, which is a very distinct feature in frogs. It is a vestigial organ that is believed to be the third eye in previous ancestors of the frogs. And lastly, another distinct feature in frogs is that they have sacral hump produced by the protrusion of the pelvic girdle, while toads have the parotid glands. There are also features in which we can distinguish the sex of a toad. If the first finger of the toad is swollen and enlarged, it is a male toad, since during breeding season, they use their thumbs to grasp females during amplexus, or their mating position. The male also has dark pigmented areas at the angles of the lower jaws on the ventral surface of the head. Lastly, females are generally bigger than males. Let's proceed to the external body parts of the toad. The toad's skin, which hangs loosely on the body, lacking loose conductive tissues, must remain moist in order to serve as a respiratory organ. The body is divisible into two regions, the axial and the appendicular. The axial region is composed of the head and the trunk, with almost no neck at all. The head consists of the snout, the external nares, the eyes, and the tympanic membrane. The snout is located at the anterior end of the head that is triangular in shape and bordered by the anterior part of the upper jaw. The external nares, or the nostrils, are two small openings near the tip of the snout which act as air channel to the nasal cavity, while the eyes are found at the dorsolateral portion of the head. The eyes are provided with the upper eyelids, the lower eyelids, the transparent covering, which is an outgrowth of the lower lid, the nictitating membrane, that helps cleanse toads' eyes when traveling underwater. And lastly, the tympanic membrane, a circular area behind each eye, acts as eardrum, which senses vibrations to hear sounds both in air and water. While in the trunk, it is divided into two regions, the thoracic and the abdominal regions. The thoracic region, also called the chest region, is the anterior half wherein we can locate the poison or parotid glands that are elevated structures of the skin just behind the tympanum. It secretes alkaloid substances which act as neurotoxins to deter predation. And the abdominal or lumbar region is the posterior half. The ventral portion is the abdominal, while the dorsal is the lumbar region. And at the posterior end of the trunk, we can locate a small opening called the anus. Let's now move to the appendicular region, which is composed of the forelimbs and the hind limbs. The forelimbs are the anterior appendages. Each limb is divided into segments which correspond also with our forelimb. The first segment, which is attached to the trunk, is the upper arm. Next segment immediately below the upper arm is the middle forearm. Next to the forearm is the carpus or wrist. Then distal to the wrist is the manus or hand. And after that is the fingers, also called digits, which are usually 4 in number. And lastly, the prepollux, which is rudimentary first finger or a short stump on the inner inside of the hand. The hind limbs are the posterior appendages. Each is also divided into segments. The first segment attached to the body mass is the thigh. The segment immediately next to the thigh is the shank, then followed by the tarsus or ankle, then the pes or the foot, which is the part of the limb distal to the tarsus. Then it is followed by the toes or the digits, usually 5 in number. We also have the web, a membranous extension of the skin connecting one toe to the other. This allows feet to have greater surface area when swimming. And lastly, the prepollux. This is the small sixth toe which may be missing in some toads. Now let's proceed to the internal body parts of the toad. The toad has two coelomic or body cavities. These are the pericardial cavity and the pleuroperitoneal cavity. The pericardial cavity is a small cavity that holds the heart, which is located at the thoracic region. So the heart is a hollow pear-shaped muscular organ which is enveloped with two transparent membranous tissues called the peritoneum. The toad's heart is mainly composed of three chambers. They have two anterior atria and one posterior conical ventricle. So the function of the right atrium is to receive the oxygenated blood from the different organs which is carried by the vena cava, while the left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs which are carried by the pulmonary veins, and the ventricle carries both the oxygenated and oxygenated blood from the atria. While the pleuroperitoneal cavity is the cavity that occupies a greater part of the space in the trunk, which holds most of the visceral organs such as the stomach, intestine, liver, pancreas, lungs, reproductive organs, spleen, and other less conspicuous organs. Let's start off with the lungs. They are paired organs for breathing, and they have thin-walled sacs that can be seen inflated or collapsed. Next is the liver. It is the largest gland in the body that has a reddish-brown color due to pigmented granules. It is divided into three lobes: the right lobe, the left lobe, and the median lobe. It produces bile and filters toxins and chemicals. Located at the ventral surface of the liver is the gallbladder, a small rounded sac which stores the bile. Next is the stomach, a big-shaped, muscular, slightly curved sac posterior to the esophagus which secretes substances that aid in chemical digestion and mechanically breaks down food. It has two regions: the cardiac region, which is a wider anterior portion which joins the esophagus with the stomach, and the pyloric region, which is the posterior region located near the pyloric sphincter. Next is the small intestine, a long, narrow, coiled tube which further digests food and absorbs nutrients. Its anterior portion is called the duodenum, while the posterior coiled portion is the ileum. We also have the pancreas, a long, thin, irregular yellowish organ suspended on the lesser omentum or the gastrohepatoduodenal mesentery, connecting the stomach, liver, and small intestine. It produces pancreatic juices which contains the enzymes trypsin, amylopsin, and lipase. Next is the large intestine, which continues from the small intestine and ends to the anus. It is a straight, uncoiled, club-shaped and dark tube which stores and solidifies waste products by absorbing water. Next, we can see the urinary bladder, a membrane-like bilobed sac that is ventral to the posterior end of the large intestine. It collects and stores urine until it is released. Next, we have the spleen, a rounded dark red gland embedded in the mesorectum. The mesorectum is a mesentery which suspends large intestine to the dorsal body wall. The spleen synthesizes antibodies and helps in immune response and blood filtration. Next, we have the kidneys, which are flat, elongated organs with a dark brown color. This filters the blood, removes waste, and controls the body's fluid balance. Now let's proceed to the gonads or the sex organs. For males, they have the testes and fat bodies. The testes are the pair of oval or elongated cylindrical yellowish bodies lying on the ventral surfaces of the kidneys. Fat bodies, also known as corpora adiposa, are the finger-like yellowish bodies attached to the anterior end of each testis. These are needed for hibernating, metamorphosis, and mating. While in females, they have the ovaries and oviducts. Ovaries are the dark organs attached to the ventral surface of kidneys that are sometimes filled with eggs. Without eggs, they become small, flattened, pale, and irregularly shaped. While the oviducts are the paired white coiled tubes lateral to the kidneys which carry eggs from the ovaries to the cloaca or the terminal part of the digestive tract. And that's all for the external and internal anatomy of the toad. Leave a like and hit the subscription box below.